Hey there, Bracy here. So I recently just saw the documentary American Factory on Netflix. Really, really, it feels like a genuine documentary. Like it's following this factory essentially from the close from when it closed to when it reopens in 2015, I believe. It's taken over by a Chinese glass manufacturing company, and it kind of shows the story of the culture clash in the middle of a corporate setting, a manufacturing corporate setting. They have margins to make, they have money to make, and they have a way that they're used to doing that in China, and you're seeing that clash with the American workforce. It's fascinating because you can see how efficient the Chinese working system is because of the culture that allows them to work in a very specific way. You can see how whether it makes them happy or not is not the question, but just the ability to overcome the stress of the work, the endurance that's needed for the working more hours than we can even imagine when it comes to an American workforce, because we kind of have like an 8-hour standard, or we can imagine it more when we're talking about people who are working on coding problems for long periods of time. Like they'll sit, like people kind of like put themselves on a pedestal when they say like, oh, I can work an 8-hour day just sitting there coding, just sitting in front of a laptop. Well, these people can maintain a factory line where they're really kind of getting the chemistry right for building not just chemistry, but like the the glass making process requires taking sand and heating it at a very specific temperature and doing all these very specific things to make sure that this glass comes out strong and to the right specifications. This takes endurance. This takes a lot of skill, and it takes people being able to do the same thing at time and time and time again, end over end. So doing that for over 14 hours a day, that's a hard task. So this is what the culture in China was used to, and then they brought it over to an American system where American workers, there's like a mandatory 8-hour time frame. So they can't even turn out as much glass just because of the cap, the daily work cap. So that means they need more employees to kind of fill in that time, but then that also means that these employees are not nearly as skilled, or they don't get as much practice as the Chinese workforce. All this to say, the whole documentary kind of laid out just these cultural differences and showed how this factory naturally just progresses to automation because there's a demand that the clients of this company have, the automakers, all these places that are buying glass from this factory. These clients have a very specific expectation as to the quality of the glass. They have an expectation as to the amount they're going to get when they say they want some purchase, and there's an expectation that this company is going to meet those demands, these needs. The company coming over from China, opening up a factory here in America means that they won't lose as much money and time on making stuff in China and shipping over all this glass and having to deal with all that, as opposed to just getting the raw materials closer to the area of production and turning those raw materials into a product and then just shipping that raw product to wherever it needed to go inside of America. The margins become better when you look at all the stuff that you don't have to do when shipping it from China. However, in the context of making a product in America, it becomes very clear to see how come the cost of doing things in America are so high. We have certain expectations. We have certain demands. We have a certain culture that a lot of people are trying to uphold and maintain. And when you start to look at that lens, look at the truth of what's getting created through this lens, it becomes clear that this stuff is going to be made automatically. It's going to be made automatically because the demand is so much higher than the capability of what humans can do. And only through that capability of automation was this company able to actually reach the margins, reach the profit after 3 years of production, because they started to get rid of a lot of the workers, especially as some of the workers tried to unionize. The factory, the management of that factory did everything they could to kind of quelch the union capabilities. And they did a lot of basically propaganda, So they did everything they could to make sure that the workers didn't unionize. These workers were making far less for the amount of time that they had to work. They're making more from what it seems that what people made in China, but less than they would expect to make here in America, because they've become expendable. They've become machines. And I'm so sorry if you're hearing this yelling in the background. Our neighbors have a pool. Their kids love to jump in that pool. What you gonna do? It's too warm in here to shut all the windows, so I just needed this nice breeze, and because of this breeze, we also have the soundscape. You may not even hear this and not even know what I'm talking about, and I hope that's the case. But if you do, that's why. So all this to say, this is just the American Factory. It's a great documentary to give you a more fundamental understanding why automation is inevitable, like why this automation is not going to just come to our factories. It gives you a good glimpse into why it's coming to the factories, but with that, understand that it is going everywhere. It is going not just to factories, it's going everywhere where automation can improve margins of the people who own the company. That includes making films, that includes just productivity across the board. Wherever a human produces something, over the next 10 years, we're going to see more and more how some mechanical digital process is going to overcome that. And with that, we need to redefine our culture. What makes us valuable in our own eyes? What makes another human being valuable? You can see if you go to New York City that we clearly don't value people who don't work. They're called homeless, and we culturally just ignore them. We just kind of mostly, and I'm saying culturally, when I say culturally, I don't mean specifically everybody, but if enough people within a certain culture do something, it means that it's part of the culture. So anyway, I recommend it. I would check it out. It's really important that this is something that we understand. We need to understand exponential change. We need to understand what exponential means and what that will mean to our lives as it's applying to the change, how things change and how fast things change in our world. These things change the manufacturing, but they also change the way people work, live, love. Stay conscious.